Hello and welcome to It's a Numbers Game. I'm Adam Morris, popping in just long enough to tee up a cracking conversation because Dan Welling is flying solo on the mic today. Dan sits down with Isobelle Coventry, UK dealmaker at Evergreen Services Group, to unpack the fast-moving MSP acquisition scene. Stick around and you'll discover the EBITDA multiples Evergreen is paying and the levers that push your numbers higher, the difference between good versus great revenue, and life after the check. What forever ownership, team career opportunities, and hands-off autonomy actually look like once the deal closes. With that, I'll step aside and let Daniel and Isobelle get straight into the numbers. Enjoy the episode.
Isobelle, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you again. Great to get a chance to chat.
We have been threatening this for a little while. We've met on the event scene over the last year, CompTIA, Huntress, or GTIA, I should now say. Was CompTIA when we met there, though, so that's...
We're still CompTIA by then. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been great to see and hear your progress in the UK market. Sydney, very kindly joined us on the podcast last year. So really wanted to start with just a bit of an update in terms of you've had the checkbook out on a few occasions. So yeah, do tell us what you've been up to.
Absolutely. And I think, in short, I think time flies when you're having fun. It was a fantastic first year on the ground in the UK. And I can't quite believe we're already, nearly 2 years into our journey in the region. I should probably preface that, I pretty much around the time that we acquired our first business in the UK, when I joined Evergreen to be some boots on the ground and build things out. So yeah, last year was very much the focus on getting our UK activities off the ground. So fast forward since when you spoke to Sydney, a while back now, we now have 7 businesses across the UK. So really excited, but also honoured to have partnered with 7 really awesome MSPs. We have got close to London. We've got Beyond the Final Step. That was our first business here in London. We've got 3 businesses across the kind of southern region. So CIF in Oxfordshire, IT Builder over in Hertfordshire. I know James is listening to this podcast, so I hope you'll hear this reference. Discharging over in Milton Keynes. And going a bit further up the motorway, we partnered with CMS over in Chester, and we're up across the Hadrian's Wall into Scotland with Serfsim, and more under the fold in the coming months. So it was a really awesome first year on the ground. Not just, as I say, acquiring some fantastic businesses and partnering with them for forever and ever going forwards, but also I think just getting the name out there, spending a lot of time building the presence in the local community. As you rightly referred to, there's no lack of events to attend in this community, which I think is a wonderful thing. So last year was also a lot of, as I say, being boots on the ground and spreading the word and putting forward Evergreen as an option when that time comes to assess that next phase for that business, be that exit, sale, or what have you.
And of course, thinking back to last year, another event you very kindly joined us at was the Tech Tribe London meetup. So you're welcome back in 2025. Good to see you there. And you mentioned Digital Origin. Stephen has very kindly been a guest on the podcast. So perhaps our long-term listener, first-time guest, James, maybe would like to join us too.
Well, if you're listening, James, we'll see you. We'll see you in the hot seat very soon by the sounds of it. No, yeah, it was really great to be in the room at Tech Tribe, which that was a long time ago now. But I think it's just a testament to this community, right? There's so many pockets of ideas and knowledge sharing going on across the UK, and it's just great to be a part of it and contribute to that continued growth of that community.
So I've got so many questions, and I'm sure you won't be able to answer them all. It is just you and I on this conversation. Don't worry about all the other people listening if there's any confidentiality, but always interested in the numbers. What can you tell us about the journey so far? Perhaps some of the stats would be interesting, like number of people now in the combined team, number of clients or endpoints. Obviously, I'd love to know your view on valuations as well, but appreciate that may be a difficult topic to cover. But yeah, tell us what you can numbers wise.
Well, but actually, I would say, contrarily, I feel like valuations is an often question. So it's always good to share a view on that. Yeah, we have expanded a lot, I would say, on my side in terms of sourcing opportunities. It's not just myself on the ground. I'm really excited to be joined by my colleague Scott, now also in the UK, who works alongside me in terms of sourcing our finding opportunities, finding the next best businesses to partner with, and building relationships with those business owners and their team. We, as you know, Daniel, we have larger operations business called Lara Technology that sits across each of our MSPs, a bit like an umbrella or board of directors. As you know as well, each of our MSPs, we're not centralizing them, given our decentralized model, but Lara acts as that larger resource to support each of those businesses in that organic growth piece and value creation over time. And there we've invested a lot. So we really are excited to continue to build out more of a regional team for here in the UK and Ireland for across Lyra. We've got our UK specific CEO, Will Dawson, who's been spending a lot of time this side of the pond when it comes to spending time with our businesses. We've got also VP of Operations, Henry, who's a bit closer to home and he's really in the weeds. I'm not even sure if he uses his own office. I think he's spending each week at one or another of our MSPs, just being a fly on the wall and helping spot those opportunities to accelerate growth, which is really exciting and heartening to see. Other updates, we did our first UK specific summit. This was for our businesses, all of our business leaders and their second in commands or other management team members all got together in a room. This is something we've done over the years as a global group of MSP businesses, but it was the first time I was putting this together specifically in the UK. I was there, fly on the wall, just observing, and it was really heartening to see just what great people we've partnered with and how everyone is really driven, I think, to see shared success across each business. There was a lot of shared learnings, a lot of real talk about how to improve things from an operational standpoint, sales perspective. There's a lot of good conversations there. So there's been a lot of those kind of updates. And I'd have to go back to the drawing board in terms of confirming to the number of endpoints we've got now in the UK. Certainly more than it was this time last year. And yeah, really proud to see what we've built and what's in store, I think, for the rest of the year and beyond.
That's really interesting to hear how there's like a community of the businesses that are part of the Evergreen family. I don't know what your description is.
It's a great description.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the podcast in a minute, but first, I just want to introduce you to the mentoring service from MSP Finance Team. How long will you carry on struggling on your own, juggling cash flow, feeling like you're barely making ends meet, when the very reason you started your MSP was not just to help others master technology, but also to secure your own financial future? Or perhaps you've grown your MSP to a good size and are looking to prepare for an optimal sale or acquisition, but have never done it before. We've walked in your shoes. We're ex-MSP owners and have built our businesses from startup to exit and know exactly how it feels to be constantly firefighting or struggling to grow profit. And that's why our mentoring, or call it coaching if you prefer, exists to help you achieve the rewards you set out to achieve in the first place. More profit, more time, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters. So you're probably asking, why should we work with you? Well, we deliver results. Here are just two examples. A 10 million MSP with a 7-strong leadership team but lackluster results. Within just 2 quarters of working with us, their profits began to climb. At the end of year 1, their profits will have jumped from 300k to 1.3 million. But we're not that big, I hear you say. Well, we work with smaller MSPs as well. A 400k MSP was suffering a 10% loss before we engaged with them and were struggling to move forward for years. Again, within a 12-month period, we've turned that business around. They've got new clients, they've got their mojo back, and they made a 10% profit this year. If you'd like results like this, book a free consultation now at mspfinanceteam.com, and we'll discuss a burning issue that's been holding you back and give you several key actions to take away and implement completely free of charge with no further obligations. Don't settle for less. Make your MSP everything you dreamed it to be.
And the businesses that have been acquired in the last year, what sort of typical size have they been? Number of staff or number of clients maybe?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of like business scale, when I think of things like revenue, EBITDA, all those fun things, most of our acquisitions across the UK have fallen pretty nicely in what I'd say is our like acquisition sweet spot. So probably around 600 to 750,000 EBITDA adjusted, which roughly translates to around 4 million in turnover, 3 to 4 million turnover.
Yep.
Just to give you a flavour of that size profile. And then obviously number of employees for a business of that size, that can depend on the level of automation in the business at the back end, or maybe where there's other efficiencies in a business. We're typically seeing kind of mid-20s, early to mid-20s, I'd say, in terms of like full-time employees in that business. And as I say, that's very much our kind of a sweet spot. I think we have a really strong methodology for supporting a business of that scale, that maturity, and how we can support their growth in the short, medium, and long term. We start acquiring businesses around, slightly smaller than that profile. There's no real upper bounds to that acquisition. I think of someone like Digital Origin, they're more of an at-scale size of business. A recent acquisition, which, to be announced in the next month or two, is more around that size profile as well. So very much a nice mix of, as I say, it's that kind of where you are on that journey in terms of not just scale, but operational maturity and overall growth and expansion of that business. It's nice to have a blend across the UK portfolio.
And when you mention adjusted EBITDA, this is adjusted and normalized for active shareholder remuneration? ?
Yeah, that's the typical way of thinking about it. I think that's a good question, actually, because I think a lot of people wonder, what does this reported EBITDA versus adjusted mean? There's a lot of myths to dispel on that, rightly so. Very much so, typically just means if we are partnering with a business where that business owner is looking to depart from the business at close, then we would adjust out for any costs that are just associated to themselves, which would cease to exist in that business post-sale. So that could very well be exactly that, the level of remuneration they're taking out, if they have personal vehicles, home office, those kind of expenses as well. You sometimes see some funky stuff going on in there, but pretty much so. I think particularly if they're working with the likes of yourself, Daniel, there's probably some quite nice clean books to
I
see.
was wondering where you were going there, but yes, quite right.
Absolutely, yeah, no, certainly.
But then they're leaving the business, so of course their direct associated costs would also cease to continue. But if they're active in the business, then there's a market competitive remuneration that you need to add back or to normalise for, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. So as we mentioned previously, we feel really great that we can accommodate a lot of different go forward futures for that business. As to what you're referring, we can support a case where that business owner wants to depart from the business at close, as I say, they want to exit, and we'll bring in a go forward MD, business leader, and match them to the business. Equally so, when I think of an example like IT Builder in Hertfordshire, James wanted to stay on with the business and partner with us in that next phase of growth. So yes, in that case, when we're thinking of numbers and what that EBITDA picture looks like, we want to normalise costs that a business owner would typically take in the UK versus what that looks like post-close. So yeah, in the UK, it's fairly common for a business owner, as you know, to be not taking a full salary through the P&L, but mostly through dividends. So that's a normalisation example that we would look to make.
Yeah, super. And of course, that can work for and against a vendor if they have been underpaying themselves. Then obviously their EBITDA would perhaps go down, but equally if they've been overpaying themselves, their EBITDA might go up because actually, yeah, we can replace you, Daniel, for a lower value.
I think it's a good point because, yeah, it's worth bearing that in mind. As you say, if you're as a small individual business, you can, as we say, you can take out most of your salary through something like dividends. So that's not going to be the case to pretty much any buyer you sell to. That will change. Same as what you're saying. I think it's not necessarily just purely the actual cost, but that kind of indirect cost of you being a business owner and founder. You're typically playing at least 1.5 jobs, I feel,
Yeah.
oftentimes.
Yeah.
And that's not remunerated for typically.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are, you're going to exit from a business, then it's worth bearing in mind, well, that acquirer definitely needs to bring in a full salary for myself going forward, because, I've been wearing many hats, and that can't come out of thin air, right? So that's something that would, again, it's those kind of thinking when it comes to a pragmatic approach to those costs and normalizing.
Indeed. And of course, if anyone is listening to this, just to clarify that, had you been taking less money out of the business and therefore perhaps accruing retained earnings in the business, then the good news is that at an exit event, you can remove that. One of the M&A terms that sometimes people are unsure of is the debt-free, cash-free description. Perhaps you could just enlighten our listeners for that and how that works.
Yeah, it's a good point. And it is one of those, as you say, one of those kind of jargon things that get thrown up into ahead of time. There's something without a lot of context. I think cash-free, debt-free in general, it can be a really good thing, particularly when, the MSP industry is an asset-light industry by and large. Depends if you have substantial data center operations, and obviously there's a lot more capex and tends to be those kind of associated costs involved, for example. But in general, if you don't have when you think of a cash-free, debt-free basis, the acquirer will, if there's any cash in the business, that's not required to continue the business running as normal, and that acquirer will calculate an average of what's needed to keep that business running, not anything surplus, just purely maintaining the business, keeping the lights on. Anything surplus of that, at least when it comes to our deals, that business owner will take that cash home. So it can actually be quite a lot if you're running a really cash positive business, and got a good amount of savings in there for investments in the business, or just savings for rainy days, the preventative measures. The same obviously goes as well with debt free. If you're running a business without any loans or anything like that, then whilst those are things that you would be responsible for resolving, if there's nothing there, then there's nothing to be having to pay back. So as I say, it can work really well, and I think shows the benefit of running a clean business and clean books, because then you know what's in front of you, and where actually that you could be accruing potentially even 500 to 800k more potentially, depending on how much, as I say, extra cash there is just flowing through the business on a day to day.
Sure. And I guess we're honing in on the valuation golden nugget then. So let's say, for example, a typical MSP that had, say, a normalized EBITDA in the 500 to a million brackets. What sort of multiples would we be expecting at the moment?
That age-old question. It's interesting. Also, I feel there's been a lot of interesting updates and reports recently around where the market sits today. I feel like we're still in a pretty similar boat. I often get asked with, if there is economic downturn, tailwinds, changes, does that impact multiples very much? And I think by and large, the answer is no. If I think of a business more around that 500k adjusted EBITDA mark, very much a ballpark estimate, but it seems to be typically buyers are looking to pay around anywhere between 5 to 7x on that normalized EBITDA. That's a very much, I take it with a pinch of salt number. It's very easy to index on what that lowest and the highest figure and not look in between. It is fair to say that as you scale as a business, you can expect to garner a valuation towards the upper end. As buyer worth their salt is going to consider the scale of the business you've built. However, I would very much emphasize, and I think it's something that's often not considered enough, but really what's important is the quality of those revenues.
Mhm.
So you can have a business that's super profitable, hefty margins, resulting in, as I say, that nice million plus EBITDA price tag. But if it's made up of maybe lower quality revenue streams, there's limited pure IT support, for example, in there. Majority of profits are coming from licenses resale or fluctuating projects, for example, or just line items that are less kind of valuable over the long term,
Mhm.
then that's not going to play so positively in terms of the overall valuation. Equally importantly is to think about what's the maturity of the business like. Is it understaffed? If a buyer acquires your business, are they going to have to immediately bring in a lot of hires because you've been focused on keeping profitability high, maybe preventing making those extra hires? Again, thinking of that founder playing that 1.5 to 2 person roles oftentimes. Things like, what's the sales process like? Is it founder-led sales? Or do you have someone in the business who's going out and bringing in new leads, like playing that sales hunter role, and a different individual who's the account manager? Those are exciting pieces that we want to see in a business. And, that's going to help push a potential valuation upwards, because we are ultimately excited to pay a fair price for a business that is operating mature, has exciting growth tailwinds, is focused on forward-thinking areas within the industry. So a focus on cybersecurity, in getting involved in AI, particularly like back-end automation or things like that. Those are all areas that we're really excited to own a business that operates as such, and are going to help boost your valuation more than just the number at the bottom of the P&L alone.
Really interesting. And so if we were to have a lineup of best quality income, we'd in the platinum gold end, we'd have recurring managed services, presumably with a good contractual term and a good healthy contract,
Brilliant.
and then we go down into the silvers with recurring resale items, so like Microsoft 365, which are going to have a lower margin, but also are more commoditized. You can buy Microsoft licensing from lots of places, but you can only buy Daniel Welling managed IT from Daniel Welling, right? And therefore there's a value to that. And then the poorest quality revenue is the non-recurring product resale, and somewhere in between are managed implementation projects, so professional services.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, and I would almost say, whilst I agree that I think the gold standard that we love to see is a really good proportion of total revenue coming from, as you say, the Daniel Welling IT support offerings, because the way we think about it is, because it's such a service-oriented sale, right? You can continue to add value to that over time. There's always areas you can improve it. You can bring in price increases. You can add extra layers to those offerings. So it's got really good longevity in terms of the value of that offering. What I would say though is, I think when I think of a really strong MSP that has a very sticky offering, really great tenured customers who rely on that business for that very much end-to-end support, and view their MSP as that tech advisor, right, rather than just the IT people, which I think is where we want to get to. I get so excited when I see examples of businesses who are, sitting in on their clients' leadership meetings, for example, or running those quarterly business reviews, QBR, doing all those things to be that value additive partner to their client. And in order to do that, I think you need to have the suite of offerings. So it is important there's definitely areas you can make, like non-recurring revenue, pretty value additive as well. I think that can be challenging as well to get right, but I think of it sometimes as a bit of a cycle of kind of sales. So you hopefully bring someone through the door and get them embedded into your IT support offerings. Potentially you have different tiers of support, so they're working their way through that premium offering, which is that really all the good stuff, alongside that your classic help desk and monitoring offerings. But then I think alongside that, once they've purchased that contract, you want to be working out, where maybe do they need to migrate some of maybe they've got some more devices they need to put into Azure. Where can we help them with that implementation project? To your point, where can we help them with actually really fine tuning some of the tools they're using, which don't fall into that recurring support piece. But by capturing those opportunities, you're becoming that really sticky partner to the client, and it adds to that level of surety that they are their long-term client to you, because they just go to you. There's no question of them needing to look elsewhere for IT support or technology in one way or another. So I think it is important to have that balance, right, as we say, in that kind of cycle effect of sales opportunities to clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. We could really drill into the sort of service offering. Maybe that's our next episode with yourselves to really look at how we should create our offerings and then manage the implementation with the clients. One question I had really interested to hear from you on this would be kind of the value is the value, and let's say the range is 5 to 7. What does the non-value based competitive landscape look for you in targets you're talking to? Like, how do you differentiate yourself from I'll say all of the other private equity? And I know that we're not necessarily wanting to say that private equity is, the different levels. In fact, that was the title of Sydney's episode with us. But presumably if I'm sat on 500,000 plus of EBITDA, I'm going to have options, right? There's going to be lots of people that are interested in talking to me and have the ability, credibility to work with me. So how do you compete in that landscape?
Great question. I can answer it for hours, and probably in many ways, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet.
Episode then.
We've got a whole trilogy of episodes coming up. The opportunities are endless. No, I think in terms of that differentiation piece, I'll mention kind of broader terms, and then maybe also when it comes to the actual offers you might see, because I think it's important to understand under the hood what an offer looks like, and I can hopefully give a bit more clarity in terms of what that deal can look like when we think about it. I think I always go back to what are our kind of core tenets when I think about our differentiation. The first being that we are a permanent partner for your business. So we, as a holding company, we are never selling our MSPs. We're never selling any of the businesses we acquire. We really believe in being that forever home for your business, for your teams. And we're not under any pressure, and unlike maybe a conventional private equity backed player in a market to reach a certain scale or XYZ number within a typical private equity holding period. That's the beauty of our model. And then I think the second piece that we promise is we really care about what happens to that business once we partner with it. And we want to preserve all what you've built and that's good about your business, maintain the identity, the brand, provide meaningful long-term growth opportunities for your team, avoid any disruption or changes to that service quality that your customers know and love. These are all things we care about and prioritize when we think about how can we help grow your business and how can we create the best environment for it to excel. And that's why the third piece that we also, I think, makes us very different is really not just the breadth, but the depth of support and resources we offer to each of our MSPs, all the while maintaining a high level of autonomy. So I think it's exciting to see when business owners want to stay along with us for the ride and continue growing alongside us. We bring a really high quality executive talent into each business we partner with. As I say, that can be that go forward MD, but that can also be finding a really awesome CRO, VP of growth, ops leader, whatever that business individually needs to bring a fresh pair of eyes and insight into that business. We can support meaningfully in terms of making the most of our scale when it comes to vendor purchasing. We'll never tell you have to change from one stack to another, or you have to move on to XYZ process and what you've been doing originally. If it's working well, as the saying goes, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But also we provide you with being able to make more value out of the existing agreements that you have and helping with hiring and talent and those recruiting costs. And there's loads of different ways we help support. And I feel really good about it's all about adding on to what is already an existing good business, but taking it to the next level. And I think the last piece I'd say in terms of just up in general is there's a lot of different opportunities we can provide when it comes to that go forward picture. I think I've gone on quite a bit about how we provide a really strong kind of safe home for your business and legacy for the long term. If what you care about is preserving that legacy of your business and leaving it in good hands, but equally if you are really, driven and want to, continue to grow a business, but be able to do so at the next level, we really care about making it a rewarding experience. We've been working on some really exciting incentivization plans and strategies for those who really are those overperformers and go on to exponentially grow the business alongside us, and making sure that you continue to feel skin in the game and those yourself as that owner, but also having the ability to reward those A-star employees in your business who maybe have not felt that uplift from a deal as such, not being shareholders themselves, but being able to have that opportunity to share in that success with your team. So there's really excited to explore what is the right option for each individual business, and equally feel pretty proud that we can find a rewarding deal, pretty flexible in that sense.
Maybe there's a fifth episode as well here to look at the recruitment topic, which I'm sure there's an interesting dimension there. For example, if I'm an exiting shareholder and we need a go forward MD for a business, where do you go and get one of those? Presumably from within your estate, your community of, it's the next step up. There can only be many senior leaders in each individual business, but is that part of the appeal?
Well, we spend quite a bit of time going out and finding really good talent. We have a dedicated talent team for that executive talent placement piece. So they do, spend a lot of efforts getting really up to speed with particularly the local talent market. I think it's important to bring, ideally as local as possible individuals into each business, because they know the culture, they understand what your particular customers want in that regions that you provide support for. That said, also in addition to, as I say, finding good talent, making sure they really match that culture, they match the energy of that business well. And we've had a good few opportunities, for example, here in the UK. When I think of CIS is a really good example. We partnered with Neil Mast and the team late last autumn. Neil, the founder, has been running an awesome business based over in Oxfordshire, wanted to depart from the business but leave it in good hands, and his number two, Matt, has been running the show for a good while. And by partnering with us and telling to us, we were able to facilitate him stepping up and really taking the reins, and feel really good about giving that opportunity to really driven individuals who otherwise would not have been able to, say, buy out the business owner. It's very challenging to do, but be able to step into those shoes and actually grow themselves professionally. We've had examples as well where some of our best performers historically, we've been able to promote them from within to move up into Lyra leadership. So Lyra Group CEO, president, they both former Evergreen business owners that are running our businesses. So there's a lot of those kind of upwards mobility opportunities as well from within, which is really exciting.
Brilliant. So as I promised, we've managed to overrun our target episode length, but I think some really interesting insights there. So it's normally around this time in the episode, I'll offer a shameless plug to our guest. I kind of feel like we might have already done a bit of that already, but if anyone wants to carry on the conversation, how best to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And it's been a great chat. I appreciate the opportunities to share them. I'll be at a surface level, so I know there's a lot of areas that people might still have questions on. Do feel free to reach out, but be that on LinkedIn, on email, Evergreen website. We also have an MSP Valuations tool on our website as well, so you can actually just enter a few very surface level metrics and details about the business, and it's a real person, oftentimes me or a colleague, who put that valuation together. It's not a robot, and we will send that to you very high level estimates because based on pretty sparse information, but what give you a flavour of what actually your business value could be today. Definitely no strings attached. We're not going to be hounding you for the next God knows how many weeks or months after that, but do believe in contributing and providing value in general in this industry. And I think it's quite helpful to get a sense of where things sit today. I would lastly just say, like, I think it's important to have these conversations. You get a sense of where things look like in your business today, even if it's very early. The thought of a sale, exit, or one form of exit or another is maybe many moons away. I do firmly believe it's never too early to start knowing what your options are and having those conversations and leveraging buyers, be that ourselves or anyone else, make the most of the information they have about M&A, about what their deals look like, what deal structures and pitfalls, things can come up and opportunities there are, as well as understanding how they value businesses. I think I've touched on quite a few areas about what we care about and what is less important. But there's a lot to be had in terms of understanding what's important for an investor when they value a business. And then, when you start to then plan out your next year, 2, 3, 5, 10, X number of years growth plan, you can focus on the things that are going to generate the most value in your business. So if you want to have a chat and just understand what we're looking for, and I'm always open. I love those conversations.
And you've almost given us a reverse plug here, because exactly the thought process we go through, Adam and I, with our clients, to start with the end in mind, what you're trying to get to, and then work back from that so that you've got an intentional plan. And 100% agree with, this is a huge topic and you've got to educate yourself on it well ahead of time. And in truth, we've never had as good a availability of information. The increase in M&A within the MSP marketplace over the last decade has produced a lot of good quality assets and former players and current and active. So there's a lot to soak up, and absolutely agree. Do soak it up, learn, even if it's not right now. So and there we are. We've gone even further over time. So if you've hung on to this point in the episode, thank you very much for your company. And Isobelle, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at an event very soon.
Thanks so much for having me, and see you and everyone listening at the next event on the calendar this year.
Super. Thank you.